Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Karen Cole from Legal Minded Friends, and today we are going to talk about the Lori Vallow Daybell. If you're new to my channel, thank you for joining. I have been in the justice system for 40 years. So together we'll look at how justice works in reality to build confidence in the justice system. So your comments are valued, and hopefully I can take your comments after we've finished with a little bit of my presentation. So, and if you're part of the replay viewers, thank you. So we're going to use the Lori Vallow Daybell case to discuss today's information on how does aggravating and mitigating factors play into and contribute to sentencing. You can watch my previous videos that I did on the particulars of this case, and I'll leave a link in the description area below. So let's get started. Lori Vallow Daybell was found guilty by a jury of her peers for all the horrific crimes against her. So let me play you a clip of the judge reading out her sentencing so you know the severity of this.
Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception. Count 2, first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan. Count 3, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception. Count 4, first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow. Count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell. And count 6, grand theft.
So now what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of what the judge said. So let's hear about that. And then we can chat a little bit about aggravating and mitigating circumstances.
On all counts. I learn and see all of the facts along with the jurors. And that's a different scenario than when someone enters a plea and I'm only allowing argument in a sentencing and not sitting through the evidence as I did here. Having considered all of the evidence that I saw at trial along with the jurors, it's been a difficult task for me to narrow down and articulate all of the aggravating factors because really there are so many here. Murder is the most serious offense. And the most unimaginable type of murder is to have a mother murdering her own children, and that's exactly what you did. You were involved in and guilty of conspiring to murder another group of children's mother, Tammy Daybell, who had children of her own. And despite the jury convicting you with overwhelming evidence, you still sit here before the court today and said you didn't do it. You came here to East Idaho, where I've spent my life, and moved here from another place already with plans in progress to make your children disappear. The evidence bore that out at trial. You removed your children from their home in Arizona, alienated them from friends and family, got rid of JJ's service dog. You moved to Rexburg, a community where you could find 1,000 random families to take your children, and you brought them here to murder them. You had so many other options. You could have gotten divorced. You could have found someone to take care of those kids. But as the state was able to prove at trial, you chose the most evil and destructive path possible. You killed those children, according to the state's theory, and I believe it, to remove them as obstacles and to profit financially. You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there. while you were enjoying your new life in Hawaii, countless law enforcement officers, family members, and volunteers were searching for your children. And I don't think to this day you have any remorse for the effort and heartache you caused for others who looked for your children when you knew where they were and knew they were dead. They were found dead, burned, mutilated, and dismembered, and buried like animals. After you knew they were dead, you collected public-funded assistance payments meant for them, and that was blood money you kept for yourself. And that's the grand theft charge you've been convicted of. Your sister, your son talked to you, begged with you while you were in the jail during phone calls I heard at trial. And those were very sad and difficult calls to hear. And you didn't provide any assistance or comfort to them. During the trial, when the evidence came out about how these children were found and the state they were in, you wanted to be excused and not have to watch the evidence, and were fine to let all the other people in the courtroom, including the jurors, have to bear through that. However, I ruled that you did have to sit and watch and see the result of your heinous crimes. The jurors in your case fulfilled their duty admirably. All 18 jurors we had, because we had alternates, went through the entire trial and faithfully fulfilled all their obligations and all the instructions. So we were able to get impartial jurors who weren't already tainted by pretrial publicity to decide your case. And I do thank the jurors publicly for the service they rendered. Those jurors I noted during the trial were very good at keeping their emotions in check and keeping stone-faced, as they're supposed to do, and be objective until the case is done and submitted. However, I did note at certain times during the trial, such as when there were videos and pictures shown of you in Hawaii at this time frame when JJ and Tylee were lying in shallow graves, the disgust on the faces of those jurors was evident, and shocking revelations about what happened here just kept coming through the trial. The crime scene was a horrific thing to have to review, and there's images that I will never get out of my mind, and I'm just looking at the pictures. Law enforcement officers who had to deal with the aftermath of what you did, I'm sure were traumatized, and I know it was traumatic as well for the jurors who had to sit through and see the photographs of these dead and mutilated and buried children. For those people who loved and cared about JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell, to have to see those photographs of them through trial of their dead and desecrated bodies must have been devastating. Tammy Daybell was murdered as a result of your conspiracy. She was, by all accounts, a healthy, happy mother and wife through a lot of her life. And you were out shopping for wedding rings to marry her husband while she was still alive. You were planning a wedding to her husband while she was still alive. You haven't shown any remorse for any of those actions. And she ended up being murdered, buried, had to be disinterred later so an autopsy could be performed in order to prove the evidence of what you had done. She didn't deserve any of that. You took her life away. You destroyed that family, fractured it to the point where, in the information I've had through the PSI, there are relationships that will probably never be mended that have rippled as a result of what's happened.
So
JJ and Tylee, of course, 7 years old, 16 years old, were separate people whose lives were
excruciating to watch,
cut
really.
way too short because of you. Never got to grow up and be adults. The family and friends who have provided their impact statements, of course, have stated it better than I could about who they were and it is a loss for everyone that you took them away from this world.
So we're going to stop it there. And what I want to do is tell you about what we did hear from Lori Daybell, as she had never spoke in the trial. And then all of a sudden, she had something to say. And her attorneys also had something to say. So it was excruciating to listen to. And if you want to watch it, I've left links in the description area, as it was something that I have never really heard before. She never took any responsibility for her crimes. And quite honestly, their statements were just horrific. In fact, I will mention some of them throughout when I'm talking, as it was shocking. And the judge was unmoved by her statements or her solicitors. So for the purposes of this video, we'll just get into the aggravating and mitigating factors. But Lori Vallow Daybell did not plead guilty. She didn't ask she didn't plead for any mercy from the court. She did not take any responsibility for her crimes, nor did she cooperate in her pre-sentencing investigation. Now, this is really important because if you've been watching my videos, I used to be a parole officer for Canada Corrections, and it was very, very important for people to take part in their pre-sentencing report, because it gives guidance to the judge. So this judge had little mitigating factors. So in mitigation, the judge considered her lack of prior criminal record, her age, and that she was a good mother, a good sister, a good friend. And many people had thought this was just unthinkable crimes that she had committed. And I found the judge did really try to balance the aggravating with the mitigating ones. As he mentioned, she was a good inmate in jail so far, and she was respectful of the court. So let's talk about the aggravating factors. Now, aggravating and mitigating factors, how they can impact your sentencing or someone's sentencing, is very similar to that of the UK. The judge, in my view, was truly disappointed. He had less mitigating factors to consider, which would have lessened the severity or culpability of the crimes against her. Though one can only imagine, it's very difficult to think that there's any mitigation in this case. But so mitigating and aggravating factors are twofold. So the offense itself will have a mitigating factor, and the person will have a aggravating and mitigating factor. So it comes like with the both of them. And if I've done a video where I do a deep dive into mitigation and aggravating factors, where a judge in the UK sentenced 3 offenders for knife crimes. So if you want to check out that, I'll leave that in the description area below as well. So back to the judge. In the Lori Daybell case, the judge had to consider 4 main objectives. And the first one is the primary consideration. That is the good order and protection of society. And when I was a parole officer, that's exactly what we want to know. Is this person a danger to society? So, and the second one is deterring individuals in public generally. And this means offenders may fear being incarcerated and therefore not commit future crimes. You may have heard that the term, for example, the judge threw the book at them. And this is when a judge gives a higher sentence than, let's say, was available to the court. Like there's a minimum and a maximum. So if you get the maximum, then that's a sign that the judge really does want to defer future offending. The third consideration is where there is a possibility of rehabilitation, which means will the person seek or benefit from treatment. However, Lori's statement to the court diminished this completely, and the possibility of her being rehabilitated was pretty much nil. She didn't take any responsibility. In fact, she said something like, her children and her friend, Lori, contacted her from the afterlife and said they were very happy and not to worry, it wasn't her fault. So she clearly did not take responsibility. The fourth one is the level of punishment or retribution for wrongdoing. So this deals in the UK, we get guidance, and this is within the judge's discretion. So you've got a minimum and a maximum. And because of this, remember when I said the defense attorneys made a statement as well, they asked the judge to give her a lighter sentence so that she would have hope. And I'm sure he did this so that he said so that she'd be able to work towards being paroled one day. However, he said that it would be more likely if she had the hope. So if, the offenses are so bad, she's going to get life. But if she had the hope of parole, then she'd be more likely to be a model inmate. Now, if you've watched my video on life in prison, then you'll know that the prison has already set up for lifers what they can do to get more, and they give incentives. So I don't think his argument was very good. So before the judge decides the case, the court must also look at the aggravating factors. And this is there undue risk that during a period of suspended sentence or probation, would the defendant commit another crime harmful to another person, or would a lesser sentence depreciate the seriousness of the crime? So will imprisonment provide an appropriate punishment for the deterrent? The court had accepted that Lori Vallow Daybell had complex mental health issues, though the judge did feel it was unknown if this could be treated. Remember, she didn't take part in the pre-sentencing report. So the judge did comment that on her mental health, and he wondered if it wasn't already occurring, though the relationship with the co-defendant, which is Chad Daybell, was the catalyst of the radical change in her. And in one of the videos, I show a clip of Lori Vallow Daybell's husband, who called the police to report that Lori was in a religious cult and that she was talking crazy, saying that he had been taken over by zombies, and that she was one of the chosen ones, and he was really afraid she was going to kill him. Unfortunately, he was killed, and by Lori's brother, who also died a bit later on, suddenly. So the problem there is the police didn't charge her brother because they thought it was self-defense. And but there's Lori is now being indicted for conspiracy for those murders. So back to Lori Daybell sentencing. The judge felt that Lori's mother said it best. Lori was not the person she knew. And this was the consensus of most people who knew Lori. Yet we heard the horrific charges against her that the jury found her guilty on. And an aggravating factor is the seriousness of the crime outweighs the mitigating factors. And the judge said that there is no reasonable option but to give her a long sentence term. So let me give you an example of everyday aggravating factors. So let's say you're caught speeding. If you're not in a built-up area, for example, this would have a lesser aggravating factor. If it was like a school zone or something where there's more risk of people being harmed, then obviously this would push it up. Mitigating factors would be if it was your first time speeding, and if you genuinely felt bad for breaking the law. You can also say that higher aggravation would be if you're robbing a house when people are sleeping. So that's something to think about. But Lori Vallow Daybell was not sorry, nor was she remorseful. So the judge made sure she would not see the light of day, and he sentenced her with first-degree murder on the 2 children and life in prison with no possibility of parole. So let's go to the comments and see what everyone has to say. Let's see. Hi, Kristen. How are you? Can I show your comment? Yes, Lori is awful. She is one bad person. If there's any comments, yes, she's a sadistic. Yeah, she definitely was. So concurrent, of course, means that her cases would run at the same time, but the judge gave her consecutive. So that means they will run one after the other. So there'd be no chance of her coming out of prison too soon. And I think this is what the solicitor or the attorney for her wanted. They wanted her to have a chance at getting paroled one day. Oh, thank you. Let's put that, show that. Oh, that's great. Thank you. So that's today's video. If you want to chat about anything else, let me know. Yeah, she would never have a chance. It was just such an awful crime, but I hope this helps for understanding, mitigating, and aggravating factors when a court makes a decision. So yeah, if people want to tell us where they're from in the chat, that would be great to know. And we can say hi. So yes, let's see. Can I put this? South Dakota, excellent. Okay, I wonder how hard her life will be in prison. Yeah, I don't think she's going to enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that the cover photo that I put on this, she had this terrible eye makeup on and everything. She would have been better off not putting it on at all. So, yes, South Dakota. So now the next video I'm going to be doing is going to be on the banks and how so many shops are not putting cash, they won't take cash anymore. So that will be something that we can look forward to. Yeah, let's unpack that. If you want to, I don't know if you've seen, I've done a video on life in prison, but yeah, I have heard that people use very strange things for makeup. So, okay. So I think that will be it for today. And thank you for joining me. And obviously, if you're part of the replay, thank you. And we'll say goodbye.